So I thought it's going to be a little boisterous.
Standing in my heart.
Oh, we all have so much room. Just pretend you're on a window ledge when you turn. Okay.
All right, welcome to the big debate. Thank you for being patient and waiting for us as we worked out a few technical difficulties, but we've got them worked out and we're ready to have a big debate tonight. My name is Ben Edel. I'm the founder and CEO of Free Oregon, and you can learn more about Free Oregon at freeoregon.us. But before we go any further, let's do a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hoorah! Play ball.
Hoorah! I bet they don't do that before the Democrat debates.
Yeah.
They don't know it.
All right, listen, so I want to just say a few words. I got a few minutes here, and then we're going to pass it over to Kristin and Krista, who's going to start going over the rules and everything else. And I'm really, really excited about this. But I just have a message to say. What you're seeing right now is how the people can push back against the establishment. We're doing it here. We're doing it now. This feed is streaming all over the place. It's going to be seen by thousands of people because these candidates right here are the people. And we have to stop voting for people that are perfect, that present themselves as having no history and no past, just wonderful politicians that will do no wrong. They're better than us. We vote for people that are better than us. We've been doing it for decades. And guess what happens? When they take power, they act like it. They act better than us. And so what we have to do is we have to understand that we have to vote for people who are just like us. People that have been hurt by the government, people that are trying to make a better life for themselves and for you. We vote for people that are like ourselves, that are already participating in the process. And when we do that, we're going to have a much better state of Oregon. We're going to have a much better lives. We're going to have much more money. We're going to have much more freedom. And we're going to have much more choices. And that's super important. And right now, what you're seeing is the Republican Party, the establishment party, not everybody, but a lot of the people that are in charge of the establishment Republican Party do not care about anything else besides their own power. And that's what their policies, their laws, their rules, and their bills are designed to do, to maintain their power and hold us down. It comes at our expense. And you've seen it since 2020. You see, what happened in 2020, more than just COVID, okay? What happened in 2020 is that the legislature in the state of Oregon got a super majority. And the Democrat Party, and I'm telling you, there are Republicans, especially front-running Republicans, who have done and voted so similarly to the Democrats to maintain their power together. That's the infrastructure. But they had a supermajority, and the Democrats controlled all three houses of government. And we've seen the most insane social experiments since then. So we have to stand up to it. We have to stand up to it and stop it. This debate is really, I'm really excited for this. It's brought to you by Free Oregon, KSOK, Drunken Politics, and the Portland Feed. And let me just turn it over to you, Kristin and Krista.
All right.
Okay, so the rules. Here we go. Each candidate will be asked, they will pick a, oh my gosh, here we go. Things are so, okay. So there are going to be 6 rounds of questions. Table 1 will answer 4, and then table 2 will answer 4, and so on. Each candidate has 2 minutes to answer each question. You will also see 3 lifeline tickets in front of you. Each ticket represents 1 minute of time, and that can be used for whatever you want. Do you want to rebuttal someone? Do you want to defend yourself? Do you have a better answer? You can use them anytime, and if you want to blow them all at once, you can do that too. To use those little magical tickets, just raise the yellow paper in front of you, and when the candidate's done answering the question, you can have your minute. Answer based on what the question means to you. We will not clarify the questions for you, so just answer it. We will reread it one time. And we have gavels, so if you get out of line, we're not afraid to use them. All right.
Awesome. All right, I'll go ahead and take your mic. Thank you very much. All right, welcome, and thank you everybody for showing up. This is really exciting. Okay, so for the introduction, you do get 1 minute to introduce yourself, but we also had, I mentioned an icebreaker earlier, we also did have a interesting question come through from one of your constituents. And let's help him out and get his name out there. Lester Horton was very excited to submit this, and he truly wants to know. So again, you have 1 minute, and you want to introduce yourself, but also address this. He would like to know if you would rather fight a horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses. All right, and we can go ahead and start with Leon.
Hi, my name is Leon Noel. I am the Libertarian candidate. I will be on the ballot. I am running unopposed in my party. And to answer that question, that is a really good question. You can either have one giant duck or a whole lot of tiny horses. I'm going to go with the giant duck because the webbed feet are just going to slow it down at that size. So it's going to be easier to run away. However, if you have a whole bunch of tiny horses, then they all bite. They bite hard. I think I'm over that.
All right, thank you very much. All right, Amber.
Hi, I'm Amber Richardson. I am from Southern Oregon. I am 37 years old, and I am running for Oregon State Governor. And I'm really excited to be here today because I'm a very action-oriented candidate, and I can't wait to talk about that. To answer that question, I am going to go also with the duck because I think it'll be a lot easier to just wring one neck.
All right, Bill, you're up.
I'm Bill Sizemore. I put like 25 measures on the ballot, cut taxes by billions of dollars. And I am a Duck football fan and a Beaver baseball fan, so I get to win a lot. So I'm going to choose the Ducks on that one.
All right, Brandon.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brandon Merritt. For the thousands of people here in the auditorium, I'd just like to get a Let's Go Brandon chant going on. Thank you very much. So,
Oh my God, I thought we were gonna get to do
great first question. I would say, just based off the fact that I would probably have Derek Clevenger as my security, I'm going to go with one large size duck, or I should say, what was it, horse?
A horse-sized duck.
Okay,
yes.
a horse-sized duck because I'm much more agile than he is. So I'm going to be straight on the run and let him deal with it. But thank you so much for having me here.
All right, excellent. All right, Bridget.
Hi, I'm Bridget Barton, and I am a relentlessly optimistic Republican outsider. And by that I mean I've not held political office. I'm not a politician. I don't have any baggage. I have nothing to lose, and I will work relentlessly for the people. I have 30 years of experience, and I am a rock-solid Republican. I'm endorsed by Oregon Right to Life, by members of Timber Unity, by sheriffs, by countless businesses across the state, and most recently by Lars Larson. You know, I would rather go to war with the duck-sized horse because as a hobby, I actually break horses, so I'm kind of used to dealing with those big animals and getting them under control.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Bridget. All right, Nick.
Well, I'm Nick Hess, and I'm not a politician. I'm just a CEO here from Portland. You know, looking to make real changes for the state of Oregon, my home. You know, it's been struggling for a long time, and I just want to see it back on its feet and people winning again. And I would have to go with the duck-sized horse because you could probably just push it over. I mean, you know, little legs.
All right, Mark.
All right, I'm Mark Thielman, and former school superintendent, and I'm the guy who kept school open during COVID and kind of made me, put me out in the limelight. And, you know, it's fascinating when you think about it because keeping your school open during COVID is a lot like fighting 100 little horses, which is why I always carry a bucket of grain. Now, I would choose the duck, but I think the bucket of grain isn't enough for a horse-sized duck. So I'm going to go with 100 horses, and we'll placate them, and we'll have them trained in no time.
All right, thank you, Mark. Paul.
My name is Paul Romero. I am the one and only Constitution Party candidate for Oregon Governor. I'm a 10-year Navy veteran, and let me tell you what, I'm a firm believer in project manager over politicians. We've had way too many politicians in office, which is fundamentally why we do not get anything done. In the meantime, I'm also a rugby player, 55-year-old rugby player. And what I'll tell you is this, between the big ducks, horse-sized duck, I've got to admit, they'd be pretty good tackling practice, but with the duck-sized horses, I get a lot of drop kick practice in. So, I look at it as an opportunity to grow on either side, so I'll flip a coin for that one.
Have to have an answer.
Oh, so we'll take the duck-sized horses.
All right.
Love it.
That was fun. I got to use my gavel. Thank you for that.
No worries.
All right. Well, we're going to start. We're going to go left to right here. And so we're going to, Leon, go ahead and draw your first question.
No point in reaching. Are we putting these back afterwards?
It's a really good question. I would say no.
Just put him in
Yeah.
that little cup.
In the discard cup.
Okay, I've got number 2 here.
That's my favorite number.
Sure. All right. What are you going to do to ensure the Oregon Health Authority doesn't go overboard again?
That's a lovely one. And the answer to that is actually I don't know. But I can tell you where I would start. The first thing that we have to do is cut their budget. We don't need to be paying somebody $500,000 a year to tell us what to do. That's not their job. Their job is to make sure that our Oregon health plan is managed appropriately. If we've gotten to the point where there is more duties associated with that, we need to take that, we need to put it on a ballot initiative. We need to send that back to the voters. We need to apply it that way and let the voters decide how we're going to deal with it. But the first step is going to be defunding them. It's going to be taking the money away and making it and eliminating positions and creating an opportunity for anything to happen naturally. One of the other ways that we can do that is because OHA was not only the problem, the state weaponized OSHA. OSHA does not need to exist anymore, ever. We have unions that OSHA was supposed to replace, and that took all of the power away from the unions, and we don't have workplace dangers like what happened when unions started forming and when OSHA was actually needed. We don't need an enforcement agency to step on the toes of our people. With that, I'm going to end what I'm saying, and I'm going to point out that our timer is off.
I thought that there might be something. Thank you for pointing that out. Christina, I'm sure will come up and make sure that that is good to go. Meanwhile, we can move on to Amber if you'd like to draw your number.
Can you reach it?
Can you just pick one for me? Not yet.
How do you use that lifeline again, just real quick?
You just say you want to use it, but
The yellow card.
Okay.
Just hold it
but
up.
Like if you wanted to answer to
Yeah.
that question.
Yep, just
You
go
can
ahead
do
and
it
hold
right
it
now.
up.
Okay.
Just go for it.
All right.
All
Amber's
right.
going to use her 1 minute lifeline to.
To the OHA
Yeah.
question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to answer to that. So with the OHA, what I'd like to say is we need to get rid of OHA, actually, because that was appointed by Kate Brown, and we didn't need it 9 years ago. I was born and raised here in Oregon. And so for me, I'd like to get actually rid of OHA, and I'd like to use those buildings for our mental health facilities. I'd like to use those buildings for our also inpatient treatments. I do think that we could govern ourselves when it comes to our personal health because I am in healthcare. So I do think that we don't need the OHA to tell us what we can and cannot do. I think that we had a lot of what happened with what Governor Brown did, where she told us that she loves to appoint these boards to tell us what we can and cannot do with our health care. And I think that one of the things that I would like to do is get rid of the OHA. So that's one of the things that I'd like to say to that.
Lifeline well used. All
But
right.
you still have to answer a question, right?
You still do. Yeah.
Oh, good, I get two things.
You get to talk all
I
day.
love this debate.
Why don't you just use all of your
Okay,
lifelines and
pick a
just talk for 10 minutes?
Well, then I'll be like, never mind.
Oh, that hurts.
Number 7.
All right, what do we have here? Okay. Home prices in Oregon are insanely high, and the housing shortage is going to go through the roof, pun intended. In your opinion, why? Why is this happening?
Well, there's a lot of things that bring our housing prices up. One of the things is that we have overregulated all of our industries with that. One of the things we need to deregulate. Governor Brown has done so much when it comes to LLC licensings. When you're an independent contractor, our contractors have had so much of regulations when it comes to what it takes to subcontract out. I mean, there are so many things that we need to do to deregulate it when it comes to just contracting, when it takes to building. I mean, there are so many things that we need to come to the red taping when they talk about building anything. So we need to take about those deregulations and red taping when it comes to even the building contracts just from that level. I can't even talk about when it, for me as a small business owner, it is so hard for somebody that wants to be an entrepreneur. You talk about students and small youth wanting to come in and to even take over maybe their father's or their mother's industries, and it's so hard because they don't even want to anymore because all the regulations that are there. So we need to start there, bringing the costs down on all of the industry there. Our inflation is so high that we need to bring costs down with. Gosh, it is so, there's so many things that we could do when it comes to deregulation that we need to start with deregulating first. We need to deregulate our costs, bring the licensing fees down in that industry first. That's the first thing. Don't zone our property lines. Those are the things that we can start first on a business side of it.
Thank you very much. All right, yes.
All right.
Lifeline.
Lifeline.
Lifeline granted.
I love this.
50-50? No,
Yeah.
I'm going
Phone a
lifeline.
friend.
Ask the audience.
No, thank you. I'm Bill Sizemore. I thought a lot about this. In fact, I put a measure on the ballot back in 2000 that required regulatory takings. It required just compensation for regulatory takings of private property. I think one of the things driving land home costs is the urban growth boundaries and the land use laws that were enacted back in the 70s that have artificially increased the price of a building lot outrageously. So you can't even buy a lot outside. You can have 10 acres outside of the country, outside of the urban growth boundary. You can have 20 acres. You can't build a house on it. And so everything's artificially increased in cost. And then the system development charges, SDCs, those have gotten so out of hand that you can be $15,000, $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 added onto the cost of building one single family home. And that's all government doing it to us. So this is not something that's happened just because of free market principles. It's because government has gotten involved in free market principles and obstructed them.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. You also get a
Oh,
question.
I get to do it. I get to draw a number.
This is the best thing ever.
I think 5's a really good number.
You have 5.
Oh, 5.
I didn't say I drew 5, I said it's a really good number.
It's my turn.
I'm like, well,
All right. What is your plan to make Oregon less dependent on federal government funding and truly operate at the state level?
That's a much more complicated question than it appears on the surface. If you look at the size of the state budget, there's two different numbers, or primarily there's the regular budget that the legislature just allocates, and then there's all of these federal dollars that come into the state, and they are all earmarked. And they usually require the state to put in some portion of money, and then the state will give us a bunch of money if we spend this much. So that the federal government is actually not forcing us, but leveraging us till we have to spend money the way they want us to spend money. So if you want to get them out and them have less control, you have to say no to literally tens of billions of dollars. And generally speaking, politicians can't say no to a few $1 million, let alone tens of billions of dollars. And so the problem really is at the federal level, and there's not the less, if the state, for example, says, well, we're not going to accept that money because you don't even have that money, federal government. You don't have a balanced budget. You're just printing the stuff. So this is play money. If they say that, guess what happens? Some other state gets it. So no state wants to go first and say, don't give us this phony money because you have to learn to keep your own house and control your own budgets, and they aren't going to do that. They don't have the federal government does not have a balanced budget amendment. All the states are required to have balanced budgets. So when you hear a politician brag here in the state, well, I balance the budget they didn't have any choice. They always have to balance the budget. The federal government doesn't, and that's where that problem really originates.
all right. Thank you very much. And we have a lifeline. Bridget's going to use a lifeline.
I am. I generally agree with what he said, but the time has come in Oregon to start putting our foot down hard. And I tell people that I'm running to put a hard stop to our 40-year decline. And this is a perfect example, because I will give you an example of where some Republican states around the country just recently turned to the federal government and said, no thanks, we're not doing it. And that was when they were passing out the unemployment benefits. And they kept extending them and extending them. And what was happening on the ground level, and we saw it here in Oregon, is you couldn't hire anyone to do anything. You probably all saw there were like $1,000 bonuses to sign on as a cook in a restaurant. That's because Joe Biden was forcing money down the throats of the states to not employ people. And some of the brave Republican governors stood up and said, we're not taking that money. Back to work, everybody. And I am that kind of governor. I will be that kind of governor. I will stand up and say no. Now, he's right. I'm not trying to be nuts here and say we're going to turn away billions of dollars. But this is an important moment in time for Oregonians. We've got to stand strong.
All right. So we have a few lifelines for we have Paul. You did have yours up first. Let's go ahead and go to you. You want to use your one of your three?
Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay. Back in 1980, in the 80s, I should say, we had our timber industry before it was destroyed. And the simple fact is there's this little thing called the Apache County Resolution. Now, the biggest thing about what it used to be like is that 75% of the timber sales and what have you went to schools. Schools never wanted for anything. They didn't need uniforms, they needed books, they were good to go. They could afford everything they needed. There was no big burden, financial burden on the parents. And the simple fact is we can actually go back to that, county by county, or as governor, can do it for the entire state. What that does is it tells the federal government no on the Title I, II, and III funds, and actually takes back the U.S. Forest Service BLM lands back to the control of the state and the counties. And that way we're back to managing ourselves. That's what needs to be done. That's what should have been done. And the fact that we've allowed this to happen, the federal welfare, that actual amount decreases every year. And when you go look at each county and what we get paid for each acre, it's not worth it. So it's time to get back to managing our forests.
Well, thank you very much. Brandon?
So I can utilize this for
Yes.
1 minute?
Yes.
Okay, so the first thing I want to say about OHA is it's an absolute disgrace the way they treated our first line responders. To for us to be at the beginning of the pandemic, to support us, for us to treat them the way that we did, by telling them if they didn't get vaccinated, they would lose their jobs, is a disgrace, 100%. And we need to make Oregonians whole again. I would 100% back either retroactively or finding a way to pay those folks and also reinstate their jobs. You want to talk about an economy for a second? We live in a state where we have over 50% of our jobs that are government employees. That's why we're in the PERS problem that we're in. We need to create a real economy, roll back regulations on small businesses, regulatory costs on small businesses. Small businesses are proven to show more job growth year over year than large corporations. Talk about corporations, we've got Intel and Nike. They're expanding way outside. Intel is no longer expanding here in Oregon because we are hitting with a corporate tax. We have to lower it. That's just the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Leon?
I want to know quickly, by the raise of hands, would you guys raise your hands if you've been on unemployment in the last 3 years? Welcome to the club.
Does it help if I'm unemployed?
I just recently got told to get lost from my employer, and I was unemployed through the entire pandemic. And I can tell you right now, the things that you guys are saying did not happen. People did not get paid $600 a week to stay home unless they made like 10 grand a month. And that's nowhere even close to meeting what they had as a family budget beforehand. Here's what happened in the pandemic. It's pure and simple. The employers said, we have to lay you off. You're going to have to go find something else to do. And everybody's side hustle became their main hustle. And now it makes more money to work for yourself. They're all entrepreneurs. They're all making money. And that's why you can't hire anybody. And it doesn't matter if the OHA people said whatever they said. If you're using the people's money to pay anyone, that's wrong. It's theft. You're extorting from the people, and you're wrong for saying it. State money is the people's money, and you should not be using it for any reason at all, period.
you. Any other lifelines want to be cashed in? All right. That was a popular one. Okay, I don't even know, where are we right now? Brandon!
Oh, good.
But he didn't put his ticket in.
Oh yeah, put your lifeline ticket in, Brandon. In
I
that
have-
little closet.
Do I have?
I have to.
Yeah.
Number 3.
Okay. All right. Oregon has allowed crime to go wild in its larger cities. Why do you think that is? Without straight blaming Democrats as a whole, what specific policies do you feel led to this?
One, I don't believe we should ever be using the terminology Democrats. It's Democratic leadership. That is what the issue is. Never alienate the voter. That's part of the party. Measure 110. Did it have good intent behind it? I don't know. But I think the people that voted for it believe that it did. It wasn't that Measure 110 in its entirety wasn't something that could be beneficial. It was the execution of Measure 110. The fact that we've got $270 million that sit with the Oversight and Ethics Council. Well, why? Because they're dealing with internal quarrels? Have you ever sat on a council? Have you ever sat on a committee? That's all you deal with is internal quarrels. We have a responsibility to, one, allow law enforcement to do their jobs. We do not give them unconstitutional stand-down orders like we have. We've put them, which is already at a high-risk position, in a higher-risk position than they are in. If we go back to the basics in terms of allowing law enforcement to do their jobs, if we don't put the cart before the horse and we actually have the facilities and the money in place, which the taxpayers have already paid for, to actually give people services that they need that will help the problem, which is what we're dealing with, which is a mental health crisis here in the state of Oregon. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any rebuttals? I knew we'd have one. All right, Nick, cash it in.
There's so much more to that. I mean, it comes down to a lack of people wanting to work for police departments anymore. So we have a shortage of police officers galore, which has led to lack of community engagement. The number one program that has left our sheriff's office, our local police departments, is community engagement, because they were short-staffed. So they got rid of community engagement, which is the number one thing that keeps people honest, I feel like, and builds trust around a police department. And without trust, nobody wants to stop committing crimes because they don't trust the police. And in regards to Measure 110, the reason why the money hasn't been allocated is actually Certificate of Need. Certificate of Need inside Oregon Health Authority has blockaded every mental health facility that has tried to access that funds. There's literally one mental health facility that has been, or is supposed to be approved and allocated those funds in the Dalles that is still pending full funding in the next 4 years. But they're the only Certificate of Need approval in the last 3 years, which is atrocious when we have a mental health crisis.
Thank you.
Oh,
Mark,
I
did I
just
see a lifeline?
I can't.
You're too late.
Bridget, you're next, I
Oh,
promise.
he went first.
Beat you to it, Bridget.
Go for it. I might keep mine too.
Quick on the draw. So real quick, just so I'm Mark Thielman, and there's a lot more to this. So there's an agenda at play that is being implemented by progressive leadership, and it's part of the 2030 agenda. So what you do is you create and sow division. You start riots, and you call them mostly peaceful. You let the rioters out of jail while jailing the patriots. You get the mayor of Portland and the city council to defund the police, and you make life generally untenable for business owners and small business people, and you do that long enough while deifying or demonizing the current president at the time. And what you get is what we're seeing now. Thousands of people moving out of Portland, the metro area, into the smaller communities all across the state, which is part of the conspiracy and the plan, if you will. I don't like to say conspiracy, but I know a lot of rural communities. I visited hundreds of them all over the state, in every county in the state, and all of them are seeing urban people moving in, and they bring different values and different perspectives, and they want to automatically change the rural way of life. This is part of that cultural division and divisiveness, which is why we need a politics of unity. We need to bridge the urban divide, and we need a strong Portland.
All right, thank you, Mark. Bridget, do you want to keep yours?
I will. I think
All right.
it is such an important problem.
It really is.
To talk about. I guess I'm too loud. Well, to start with, we've defunded and demoralized the police, absolutely. But we've also completely misidentified the problem with homelessness. We don't have a homeless problem, we have a substance abuse problem. And every sheriff I've talked to across the state, and it's lots of them, have said that crime, substance abuse, and homelessness are intertwined, and substance abuse is at the base of all of this growing crime. For the last 30 years, we've had this ridiculous model that clearly doesn't work, that's drawn more substance abuse into our communities. And what have we seen at the same time? The crime rate soaring. And this last spike that we've seen goes right along with ballot measure 110, which I will make sure we get on the ballot to have it overturned. Because parents groups, treatment advocates, and law enforcement people would like to see that repealed. They know it doesn't work. It's going to be the death of Oregon because of the crime rate. And as for the application of the funds, the reason the funds can't be allocated well is because it put cannabis tax towards this. Well, cannabis is not legal federally, so no federal Medicaid and Medicare funds can come in to be used. So you cannot use that money for treatment.
You got like 99.9 in. Excellent. All right, thank you guys very much. Bridget, your question.
Okay, I can keep talking.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's lucky. Number 4.
All right. Everywhere you look in Oregon cities, you see homelessness on display. Specifically, what do you feel led to the severe issues throughout our state?
I should have saved my lifeline.
Yeah.
So, as I said, well, I'm going to start with this. A lot of people know this by now, but not everyone. I'm 40 years in recovery from alcoholism. Started drinking at 14, stopped at 28. I was a round-the-clock chronic alcoholic, very close to being homeless myself. So when I look at what we're doing, I can see, and I feel it in my heart, it's not compassionate at all, completely inhumane. We are allowing people to commit slow suicide on the streets, and we need to flip this model because we're enabling these people to continue this life. So we need to flip the housing first model on its head and begin with building a database, which is easy. It's a simple inventory system, using available government buildings, so we don't need to spend money, just retrofit some of them, so that we have very low barrier shelters that then it would be legal for law enforcement to go in and push them into those shelters. We treat dogs and cats better in Portland. If you've seen the facility on Columbia Boulevard, it's like the Taj Mahal compared to what the homeless are living in. So once you have that in place, then the money that's being used for so-called housing, we call it the homeless industrial complex, all the government jobs that have been created, the billions of dollars being spent in grants to these nonprofits to recycle these people, that has to be reallocated for treatment. We're number 2 in the country in substance abuse per capita and growing. Number 1 in meth and opiates. And number 50 in treatment beds per capita. This is government malpractice. I would flip that model immediately. I can tell you that once someone gets into recovery, you can buy your own darn house. And I have. And I know, and everyone I know who's gotten into recovery and moved forward is able to do these things without government intervention.
Thank you very much, Bridget. All right, Paul.
One of the things is that they've been importing homeless here into Oregon from all kinds of states. And I think the first thing we're going to have to do is actually identify those and send them back and let their governor know they get to pay for that trip back. The next step is very simply to interview these people. We have, whether it's mental illness or addiction, sometimes it's just job. Can't actually, I've met an entire family, both parents work, but they can't afford housing. 4 months of housing rent to get into a place isn't part of their what they could do. Now the next thing is that with that, come on, I just lost my train of thought. With the homeless, I was told by a homeless person, said, the way to fix this, we actually have a good program for homeless to get them off the streets and everything. Problem was, he said, is you need to e-verify. He said, we have so many illegal immigrants in this system, it jams it up. It took him 5 years to get on the program. When I met him, he'd been in the house for 2 weeks. He said, I'm finally in the system. Moving forward, I'm not going back.
All right, thank you very much. And I did see Leon, you put your card up first. All right. This is a hot topic.
This is not the state's job. 100%, we should not be allocating any funds to homeless. The problem here is that nobody's bothering to talk to the homeless to find out what's going on. If we talk to the homeless, like I've done in the recent month, we find out that they don't want our help in the first place. A small majority want to just live life and not have to be tied down by anything. They don't want to be shoved into an internment camp or a gulag or whatever. And Mr. Romero, for a constitutionalist, you just created a class of people that is unconstitutional from our state constitution.
I had a minute.
But you just made an unconstitutional statement. What you want to do is unconstitutional. So I'm calling you on the carpet for that. We can't do this. We can't tell the homeless that they have to go somewhere. It doesn't work. We need to leave them alone and offer them philanthropically, not through the government, help.
All right. Yeah. So we have Nick next, and then Bill.
We've had very different conversations with homeless people.
Yeah.
Used to be homeless.
I guess we didn't talk to you.
Yeah, I guess not. I've visited at least 19 different shelters across the state and heard about their programs and talked with people and discussed, what they need in their lives to make an impact. There are things that we need to do, like upgrade HMIS. We have a 40-year-old database system that manages all of this, and the infrastructure and where there are beds available and all of that needs to be added into that in a new relevant system that needs to be modernized. Leverage technology. We have the technology out there. We've done it forever. But more than that, we really need to make sure that our taxpayer dollars are getting a good return on investment. And when I say that, that means we need to stop funding city-ran programs that are proven to fail time and time again and fund nonprofits that are proven to succeed. One of them that I tout often is Rogue Retreat down in Medford. They're spending less than $500 per person and succeeding with an over 61% success rate at getting people off the streets, clean and sober, into long-term housing with jobs in under a year.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, Bill.
Economics 101. You spend more on something, you get more. And the more money you allocate to helping the homeless, the more homelessness you're going to get. You subsidize it, you get more of it. But I want to tell you that the murder rate in Portland, all-time record, the car thefts, the burglary rates, the Antifa riots, and homelessness are really all an expression of the same problem, and that's lawlessness, no respect for the law. Let me give you an example. Imagine going back 15 or 20 years in Portland. Just, they say 15 years ago, you walk down the sidewalk, you say, you know what, I'm going to set up a tent right here, and I'm going to live there, and I'm going to spread trash all around, even including my used needles, and I'm going to use that storefront for a restroom. You wouldn't have even thought of doing that because we had respect for law and order, because you would have been hauled off within an hour of doing it. But what we have is a disrespect for the law, and all of these come back to enforcing the law in a way that makes people know we're not playing around. We're going to enforce the law.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm throwing my lifeline in.
let's do it.
The last time I checked, we're still talking about human beings. This is where I draw a major issue, and this is where the party is completely wrong on this issue. We're talking about a number of people that I entirely disagree that are looking for dignity, that are looking to better their lives. What we have set up for them right now, I agree, is trash, but that was put into place by the Democratic leadership. Why would Ted Wheeler build the shack that he did right off of 6th Avenue for the homeless population? These people need real resources, real places for them to either temporarily live and have services to get them off of the hardcore drugs that we all just admitted is a mental health crisis in this state. But now we're looking at it as, oh, they're just a group of people and we're going to remove them. What about the Boise deal? That's a problem as well. I'm not going to assume that you know what that is, but it doesn't allow our law enforcement to do what they properly can to remove folks from our public parks. Going back to law and order, we have to allow law enforcement to do their jobs. We have to look at these people as people.
All right, thank you very much. All right. Nick, you're up for your actual question.
Oh, what is this? 5.
Oh, yes, we did this one right. Okay.
Less dependent
So-
on federal funding and more dependent on state level.
You may have forgotten on this. What is your plan to make Oregon less dependent on federal government funding and truly operate at the state level?
Didn't we already have that?
Yeah.
I had 5 before, so
Yeah.
we get to do it
We're
another
still-
time?
Yeah, we have one set of duplicates.
Fine.
Yeah.
It's such a good question, but I mean, I think in a lot of ways, I feel like it's more about using the money more efficiently so that we don't need to take as much money. There are obviously ways that we can become more independent, but at the end of the day, you know, we want to get our fair share from the federal government so that other states don't get it as well, which is kind of a back and forth struggle, I feel. But, you know, the reality is that we overspend on things, and the real problem that I see, though, is a lot of that money gets allocated to the wrong thing. You know, let's take VA dollars that have come from the federal government that haven't ended up going to, you know, help veterans in Oregon. That's been reallocated to other things, or software upgrades that have been reallocated to other things. You know, we take a lot of money that actually had a good purpose, and we end up wasting it on something completely different. And right now, we don't know all the money that we're wasting or where it's even going because of lack of transparency inside of our government. You know, it's something I talk about a lot, that we need to have clear and complete information completely available to all of our constituents in Oregon so that they know where every dollar is getting spent, where it was earmarked for, and then where it ended up going. You know, and we don't have that right now. If you go and try and even look up the budget and try and go any more than one layer deep, you're like, you're lost. And up your creek, you got to change that. So we need to start looking at how we can do that. And I think that takes a leader that's willing to go on record that they're going to release everything, you know? And that's something I've said from day one. Anything that I have access to as governor is going to be made publicly available. Because the reality is that the governor works for you, not the other way around. And it's sad that politicians have decided that they want to do what they want to do and railroad what your needs are or desires are from a state. So we need to change that dynamic on its head and do something completely different. So.
Thank you very much, Nick. 0 rebuttals on that one, huh? All right.
I still had 12 seconds left.
Oh.
Why are you stopping me?
Take your 12 back then.
What is that?
I can't take it.
Mark is
right,
going to
Mark.
steal it anyway.
Okay, so I got 1 minute. Let me explain how federal matching dollars work. You know, Bill was correct. The feds throw down money and they say for every dollar you invest in health care, we will send you $6. This happened in 2012 and 2013 under Governor Kitzhaber and Barack Obama, the president. What they don't tell you and what everyone needs to understand is why does this create a crisis in our budget in the state? It's because the next year you don't get $6, you get $5. And the year after that you get $4. But because the federal government says you can't spend less in the next year than you did in the prior year, so then they have to start backfilling with state dollars. And that causes states like California, Oregon, and Washington State to begin to feel the financial strain. So they start cheapening out things like Oregon Health Authority, Oregon Health Plan, or they start working more co-pays into your health plans. It is a commingled problem that is absolutely indicative of bad progressive leadership. When I'm your governor, we don't make deals like that, deals that don't work for the people. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
It's tough.
All right. Your actual question.
Oh,
It's your turn.
yeah. Okay, well now I'm gonna ask you.
We have a pattern going here, don't we?
Number 15. Mixing it up.
All right. Oregon is predominantly rural, and agriculture is a major economic driver. How will you address the current political regulatory stress on this important part of our state?
Well, that's a wonderful question. So as a tree farmer myself and a former farmer in my young days, I've done a lot of farming and ranching and logging, and I can tell you it is a politically charged industry that people in leadership here in Oregon, aka the progressives, have been doing their darndest to destroy. So the piece is that strong agricultural base in any state economy equals $6 by the time all of that money that's spent on the farms and fields and labor gets up through and goes through the cities and through the ports. But our progressive friends have an agenda, and they want large corporate hedge funds buying up farmland and they want all control of water rights. And as a result, the family-owned farm is becoming less and less common. Ability to access resources that were guaranteed at the turn of the century, AKA water. This government has been putting a lot of hurt to a lot of people, barring them from drilling wells or expanding water, forcing them to create or install expensive systems, or in the case of places like Madras and Deschutes counties, they literally say, you just don't get the water this year. And they don't fill up the reservoirs. This is a government-caused problem. It goes way beyond a drought year. It's just amplified in a drought year. So we have to have real leadership. We have to be able to remind everyone on how important it is to have strong farms and ranches, to have cheap shipping through our rivers and our inland port systems, so we can move those grains and commodities out to port, and then to modernize our ports in Coos Bay and other places so that we're the gateway to the Pacific. It is shameful, all of the economic opportunity that we're wasting and the way we've been treating our family-owned farmers.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Paul?
He's definitely right about the water. Here's the thing, though. Right now, we currently have the Chinese Communist Party buying up ranches, farms, rental properties, other properties, as well as actual water rights in Southern Oregon. Ask yourself this question. Why would the Chinese Communist Party be owning all our ranches, farms, and water rights? This shouldn't even happen, but it is happening. Here in Oregon, they've been poisoning the well by basically creating an environment that we don't want to be in, importing all the homeless, what have you. And then the next thing they're doing is they're actually drying the well. This drought that we currently have here in Oregon is intentional. The Bureau of Reclamation has been dumping water out of the reservoirs on purpose, claiming it's to rinse the riverbeds. Since when do we need to rinse riverbeds? We don't. Now, you go look at a natural lake in this state, they're full. The rivers, creeks, streams coming out of them are doing fine. However, they've been maintaining the river levels out of these reservoirs. That's why we have that added drought, not to mention the water that's no longer available to farmers. We have orographic cloud seeding to fix this, but fundamentally, we got to shut down the Bureau of Reclamation and turn that around. They're literally doing the opposite of their job.
Thank you. All right, you get your question.
There we go. Lucky number 16.
Okay. Currently, Oregon education test scores rank 48 out of 50. What changes will you make to prioritize the education system?
Well, one of the first things we have to do, and the nice thing about being a governor, you're also the superintendent of schools, is to basically eliminate all this division, this cultural Marxism that's literally dividing the family unit, okay? They're creating this chaos within our children, between the parents. This is further destabilizes the family. For education, we need to go back to old school, okay? Part of that, it's actually all connected as far as the water, the farming, the timber industry, because when we have the timber industry and 25% of that profit in a given county going to the school system, you don't have these shortcomings. But we have to get out of this whole indoctrination process. This shouldn't exist in any of the public schools. I don't see my time, just let you know. So there's something that's fundamental about the schools. I think that with what we already spend at the school level right now, I think we're ranked in top 5, I think it is, in the country for our students, and yet we're in the bottom for the actual education. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that have graduated in the last 2 years. They are ill-equipped and ill-prepared to be out there in the job world. So for me, my first degree is in workforce education and development. And a long time ago, I wrote a program for a school-to-work program. Well, that school-to-work program can be used for not only juniors and seniors in high school, but also these juniors, seniors, people that graduated already in the last 2 years to help them out as well, but also potentially even our homeless population. Not to mention some of the adults that, well, have had to kind of look for a new career. But fundamentally, we still have to get jobs back in Oregon. All these things are interconnected. They're all interrelated. And I think that's one of the biggest things that was shocking to me as we mapped this all out. The water, the farmers, the ranchers, the timber industry, it is all connected. And they're literally trying to get people to leave the state of Oregon. And that's why I keep asking people, hang on there. We got one more shot at this before I have to go and fix the state of Jefferson. So that's what we need to do. Let's fix this, take Oregon back.
Thank you, Paul. All right, Amber.
And we get a minute, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'll set my timer.
Thanks.
Yeah. And the question was about our education. So one of the things that I did is on my campaign tour is that I feel that our students don't even know what our constitutional rights are, and so one of the things is I love is teaching our students what their constitutional rights are so they can stand up for their constitution. So I did a freedom band, right? This has our constitution on it, has their Bill of Rights on it, their HIPAA rights on it, things like that, so it can start getting our students to stand up for their rights. So one of the things is that we need to get in there and take action now and start showing our students more. One of the things is that, we've seen the indoctrination. I am 37 years old, and it said, Milton Friedman was out there, and he said it takes 20 years, right? 20 years. I am 37, so I went to college at 17, and now 37, I'm going back on those college campuses, and it is a complete flip of the script now. They are not being taught what they were when I was in college. And we've got to change that. We've got to give their parents their rights back with what their students are being taught. And we've got to start K through 12. CRT, Kate Brown snuck that thing in. We've got to do an executive order on that and get no CRT in our schools. We don't want it. And that has to be written day one. Sorry. Darn it.
Thank you, Amber.
Just so you know,
I knew
the
it.
timer
All right, Mark.
isn't
I was waiting.
Okay, I'm out of
Really?
lifelines.
You didn't have it up yet? All right, lifeline, Mark.
So as a public school superintendent and the only declared conservative superintendent in the state of Oregon, very lonely place, I can tell you, not only do we have to get rid of the CRT, but we have to go back and restore parents as the determinant in the education system. And that means that we have to create a completely different approach. So not only do we teach reading, writing, math, we stop confusing kids with ideologies or telling them what gender they could be. There's a reason why we don't let 5-year-olds drive, okay? And we shouldn't be confusing them about their genders, especially in grades K through 4. It is the parents' place to handle that. It is the school's place to teach how to think and not what to think. And it is critical that we elect a governor who can take ownership of the education system. The governor has tremendous power and authority over all schools in Oregon, and we need to elect the right one with the right perspective that's going to restore things like the Constitution and implement healthy curriculums that cause kids to love their communities, love themselves, and look forward to being an adult.
Thank you. Bill.
I'm saying goodbye to my last
All
lifeline now.
right.
Oh, Bill.
R.I.P.
I can't pass this up. The biggest problem with public education is teachers' unions. Forgive me, it's not teachers, it's teachers' unions. There are good teachers and there are bad teachers. But that doesn't matter to the teachers' union because they control the system. One example of that, and I'll say it as quickly as I can, when the vaccine came out, who did Kate Brown give the vaccine to first? The elderly? The ones most vulnerable? No, she gives it to school teachers. And she doesn't even require them to go back into the classroom. So that just illustrated how much control they have of the system. If there's layoffs at a school, budget cutbacks, do they keep the best teachers? No. They keep the teacher who has been there the longest. Because the teachers' union demands that seniority be the guiding principle in everything. How much they're paid, doesn't matter if you're a good teacher or bad teacher. You've been there the longest, you get paid the most. If there's layoffs, if you are been there the longest, you stay. Even if the young one, the new one, is the best teacher in the whole world, they go. Teachers' unions are ruining public education.
All right, thank you very much. All right, have we completed round one? Oh, all right, we've got a rebuttal.
that guy.
Let's do it.
I've used all three in the first round.
Me too.
You said you were going to use them.
So my feeling on this is that the problem, we've all said it at one point or another, parenting and educating our kids starts in the home. I am the only candidate that is offering a direct $7,500 tax credit to you, the parent. You yank your kid out of the public school system. If you're a private or homeschool parent, you can apply that $7,500 tax credit. Private school, charter school, you can utilize that credit. And finally, when we go back to quarterly funding bases, superintendents and school boards will feel that hit, and you, the parents, will have a voice again on your children's education, period.
Good idea.
Thank you very much. All right, round one has ended. This is exciting. All right, let's go ahead and offer up do we want to offer
Excuse me, I need 3 more lifelines.
Yes.
3 more lifelines. Anyone want to take a quick break, because we do have commentary happening in the back, and we can shoot our cameras over there, and if anyone needed a
Bill
minute.
says multiple times he has used the restroom.
I'm not saying. My
Mark did.
catheter's not even full yet.
All right. I'm taking it we're all good to keep going?
Yep.
All right, excellent. All right, Leon. I'm going to
Oh,
start
it's
us
my turn
off with
again?
the new question.
Don't take mine. Bill, you're such a thief.
Let's try number 11.
All right. Do
gonna
you
take this away
feel
from you.
confident in Oregon's election laws?
You know, I keep hearing a lot about this. There's one party that says they're completely and utterly safe, and there's another party that says that that the other party's cheating. The only way you can confirm that the other party is cheating is to have access to the back data, and you can't get that from the central source because of the security built into it. Now, what also kills me about this is that nobody bothered to look and see when the voting system was created. It was created in the 80s, and it was signed by a Republican governor in a House and in a legislature that was balanced. It wasn't something that was created by Democrats to run the world. It was something that was created by both parties. And to say that it doesn't work now, well, I don't believe that. The reason I don't believe that is because I don't put my ballot in the mail. I take it to my polling place. I take it to at least a drop box that goes to my polling place. I can then see the numbers on my county polling website. And that is when they send it to the state. And if there's a discrepancy between those numbers, they correct it. I don't see how our system can be damaged. I do see from talking with people who have been involved directly with the system that the system could have some improvement. And yes, we should find those improvements and implement them. But at the same time, it is also the most secure system in the nation. Why wouldn't we want to build on that? Everyone is looking at us for that concept so they can apply it to their state too. I believe Washington and Utah have done similar things. I don't see what the claims are being seen. I don't see them because I'm looking at the data and the data doesn't tell me that.
All right, thank you very much.
I wish I had a lifeline, but I don't.
Oh, all 3 gone.
I could
They're all
shred
trying to
that.
get me to use mine.
know, I kind of want to use it, but I'm like,
How much are they going for on the market these days?
Oh my gosh.
What's the going rate?
Fine, I'll
I
use
have
it.
to.
No one's gonna say
I have
anything
to
I'm gonna
about
use it.
integrity?
All right,
Go
Nick,
ahead, we'll
add
use it.
11 seconds onto that minute. I owe you.
Yeah,
have to do
thank
it.
you. About time I recognized. Okay, so I struggle with this because I have had my team go through and review, all of the election results, how many people voted, and what we've looked for things that are out of whack. But here's my big concern with election integrity right now. Right now, we're implementing a new election system with the same people who have had done all of our software upgrades in the past. And they know nothing about what they're doing because they proved that time and time again. And now they're in charge of our election system. We're implementing this new system called No Ink. No Ink is promising, but at the same time, do we actually trust these people to implement something properly? And what is that going to look like when we go and use it in 2 years? Probably nothing good, and it probably won't mean good counts, ever. So, on top of that, I would also like to see us have some kind of trust-building mechanism inside of our ballots. What I mean by that, one of the things I've been looking at is blockchain technology. There's a really cool group out there that has a tool that would allow you to verify your own vote with a little peel-off sticker on it that you could take, and it's your own number to reference to know that your vote was counted, for who, when it was counted, and you'd be able to verify that on your own so you could build trust in the election system. That went really fast.
You have like 5 seconds left. Would you like to use that?
It's okay.
All right.
Okay, no, I have to.
All right.
I'm going to use my lifeline, even though, so the reason why I was holding off is because I hope that there is something on human and sex trafficking, because it's something, a topic that I hope comes up, but I am going to use this because election integrity is so important to me. So, first of all, our voter rolls have been messed up since 1994. We have not cleaned them up. Okay, I'm in Jackson County. I am the second worst county in the state of Oregon. Okay, Multnomah County is the worst county in state of Oregon. All right, so Jackson County, we have not cleaned up. We cleaned up 0 voter rolls since 1994. Okay, 0. Multnomah County cleaned up 4 voter rolls since 1994. There is massive amount of evidence out there. We have had a Jackson County action team out there canvassing for the last 8 months. The amount of evidence that we have about election fraud is uncanny. So yes, there is stuff out there. The media just won't let us talk about it. And I'm telling you, there is so much stuff out there. And I only have 2 seconds, and I use my last lifeline.
Thank you very much.
County clerk is responsible
But
for that.
And
maybe
now you
you'll-
get your question.
Yeah, maybe you'll draw a question that's
I hope so.
Things will go faster now.
Number 9.
In 2020, the Portland Police Bureau was defunded, and one of the teams cut was gun violence reduction team. Since then, gun violence and homicides have skyrocketed. How do you plan to make our streets safe again?
Well, so I believe in our Second Amendment rights. When it comes to our police department, I think we need to give our badge back to our police. One of the things is and also with crime, a lot of the things they always talk about Portland. I'm from Southern Oregon. I live in Jackson County, and one of the things in the state of Oregon is that we have to look at Oregon as a state as a whole. Crime is in our state is not just one part of the state. The state is everywhere. Where I live in Southern Oregon, and we are dealing with the cartel with these large marijuana grows, and we have crime that is much different. So we can't look at crime as just one part of the state. So, we've got to give our police back their badge. We've got to give them back their morale as well. And we've got to be able to, as a governor, we've got to be able to say, hey, in this portion of the state, we have got to be able to handle crime this way. In this portion of the state, we've got to handle crime this way. Neighborhood watches, those things are very important in our state. And not everything is just handled in one way. And, that is something that has been so frustrating in most of our state. If you look at Eastern Oregon, if you look at the coastal town, most of our state feels like it's been forgotten. And that is the most frustrating thing. And now our police, they feel that they're completely forgotten. So we've got to give enough funding, a very, very healthy budget to our police. Ethos is a program that is to our police department to bring back their morale. We need to have that instilled as well. So bring a good, healthy budget, get our police back their badge, and look at our state as a whole so that we are, combating crime as an entire part of our state.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, Bill. Oh, we have all right, Leon.
I'm going to use the last one.
All right.
We need to remember, first off, that the reason the riots happened was because the police overstepped somewhere. If you want to rebuild the police, great. Lower the crimes that can be committed, remove the police presence in the crimes that don't need to be handled, like stoplights being out or headlights being out. We don't need to have law enforcement deal with every tiny little thing. And if they're out of the picture, and this is what happened, there's a white paper out there on what the Antifa was using to do it. There was a systematic methodology to escalate the situation to the point where they were using tear gas. And once that started, there was a door-to-door crew passing out flyers and telling you how to deal with it. You want better policing, you're going to have to be the police yourself. Stay strapped.
All right, thank you. Any other rebuttals? Anyone have any left? All right, nice. Not for this one, though, right? All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, Bill.
All right. Let's see. Lucky number
1.
1. That's how I'm
the
going to come
teamwork.
out in the primary. Is number 1. So it's
Keep those
prophetic.
happy
There
thoughts.
you go.
Prophetic. It's like a Chinese fortune
You'll forget
cookie.
by morning.
No, Joe Biden will forget by morning, but I won't.
All right, number 1, taxes and government spending are a total joke. What are you going to do about that if you get elected?
Well, that is a subject near and dear to my heart. I put several measures on the ballot to deal with taxes. And I will threaten to do it again if necessary with the legislature. I will tell them that I will veto any and all tax increases. I mean, I've cut property taxes by tens of billions of dollars, and I've placed a measure on the ballot that says no new taxes or fees without voter approval. Just give the power back to the people. If you want some of their money, ask them, persuade them. Don't just take it. And the legislature, I believe there's going to be a good, strong red wave in Oregon this year, but I don't think, I would be surprised if it sweeps Republicans into control of the House and Senate. So it's more likely that we're going to have more of the same coming out of Portland and Eugene with efforts to increase taxes, because no matter how much money you give them, it's never enough. And I will make it clear at the beginning of the session, in fact, on Inauguration Day, if they haven't got it already, that any tax increase you pass, I don't care what the excuse is, any tax increase you pass, I will veto it. And I mean that not because there are not times when government needs more money for a specific thing, but if they need more money for a specific thing, then move money from something that's not as important over and allocate it to that more important thing, not go back and continually harass the taxpayers for more and more of their money. And I put a total of 25 measures on the ballot, and in fact, I put a measure on the ballot that made federal income taxes fully deductible on your state tax return. And it was kind of funny because I just thought that was a good idea. Why would you be double taxed? The legislature totally panicked. They said Sizemore's measure's got $1 billion price tag. $1 billion. If you don't double tax people, that's how much money they're collecting. And so they panicked and they said, we'll put our own measure on the ballot, and we'll split the vote so Sizemore's measure doesn't pass. Their measure passed. Mine failed, and now we can deduct $7,000 instead of $3,000 because of a measure of mine that got defeated. So, I'd like to make them play that game.
Excellent. Thank you very much. No rebuttals. All right. Brandon,
I'm all out.
get an actual question this time.
Perfect. 14.
All right, how would you gauge your understanding of governor's powers and limitations?
Such a good question. I have viewed the governor's office as one of a role of a servant. You have to have leadership qualities. This state, this country, we're in desperate need of leadership. Oftentimes it's misconstrued as someone that is overseeing, dictating certain powers that, quite frankly, should not be allowed. I think executive orders should be used in the rarest of occasions. We've seen government overreach, at least in my lifetime, at the highest level I've ever seen it. And the result? We're looking at tyranny. We're looking at a state and a city in particular, Portland, that is dealing with the worst crime rates, homeless population, drug use, you name it. In conjunction with our county levels, we have 36 counties, 36 wonderful counties here in the state of Oregon. I would love to see power go back to the local level, for a governor to work in partnership with our local leadership, who you elect, by the way, and work in conjunction with the subject matter experts in these particular areas to come to an actual solution instead of a bunch of sound bites, which is what we're currently dealing with. The conditioning process that takes place in our legislative branch, in my opinion, is folks that want to meet with union leaders who barely even represent their members. If you get in touch with the actual human element, go meet with folks from the ag community, go meet with folks that lost their businesses in downtown Portland, my goodness, you will get an entirely different perspective than what's currently being shared. And so, as a governor, I truly believe that, one, you have to have a vision of putting Oregon on a prosperous path forward, a new path forward. Not going back, a new path forward. Let's make Oregon whole again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Bridget.
Lucky 7.
All
It's my
right.
horse's name.
Love love it. Okay, so you have heard this one before. Again, we have two sets in these. Number 7, home prices in Oregon are insanely high and the housing shortage is going through the roof. In your opinion, why is this happening?
I'm just going to take a little bit of time to answer it because I generally agreed with what Bill had to say. I think this is fundamentally a problem with our land use system that constricts the supply of buildable land, makes it impossible to build even on rural acreage without meeting these kind of ridiculous requirements. And so it's just like, when I've talked about this, it's just like the gas situation. If you constrict the supply, the price goes up. It's not rocket science. And we have been doing that now since the 70s, so we're into this for 50 years. And it was planned. This was an actual plan. You can look at Metro's agenda and see this is what they had in mind, squeezing us all tightly in, constricting the supply. So I have 2 adult children that are trying to start lives here in Oregon, and one of them, I don't know how they'll ever be able to afford a house. I think the average price is $700,000. Who can do that when you're a young couple? Who can do it when you're older, for that matter? So we've got to go in and look at better use of secondary lands, and if it was up to me, I would undo the urban growth boundary. Now, that is going to take some appointment power that I do have. It's going to take some time. It probably needs to move through the legislature. I hope that by the time I'm into the second 2 years of my 4-year term, we will have a Republican legislature. We could overturn that and get back to opening up our land for housing. The other point was made earlier as well, and that is all these regulations and fees and restrictions and the amount of money that they have to spend to build out in any communities is prohibitive. It's just, those fees and regulations have to be removed and restricted. I too would make a commitment immediately not to raise taxes and fees and not to sign off on any new regulations on business owners or on the ability to build for the builders.
Excellent, thank you very much. All right, Nick.
Eat.
Oh, this is a good one.
Oh, great.
Oh, yes.
Should I get this ready? Get ready. I'm getting it ready.
I wish I knew I had a lifeline left. All right.
Okay, Antifa, who has been referred to as an idea, and their fellow comrades have been quite frisky in Portland for years. How will you prevent another 2020 and 100 days of violence from happening again?
Well, I would say if the Portland police won't do their job, then we send in the National Guard to put an end to things. I mean, the reality is we cannot have lawless streets. We have to punish crime. It is ridiculous that we let it go on so long. We did nothing. We had a mayor of Portland, which, protested against his own staff. I couldn't even imagine if I went to work one day and said, I'm boycotting all of you and I'm protesting against you, my people would walk out and throw things at me. It'd be bad. Nobody wants that. And we saw that because we had a mass exodus of our police. I mean, you cannot diminish your people like that. And they even had to go in and rescue him one day because he was on the front lines of a protest. It's pathetic. It's awful. And, that's just poor leadership. And I think, from the governor's office, it's about setting an example through leadership that this is unacceptable. It's unacceptable for our DAs not to prosecute. It's unacceptable for anybody to be protesting against their police, their own employees. And it's unacceptable for them not to feel supported. And I think it's sad that we have done so many things to tie their hands with every big problem that we have in this state. We tie their hands through the law that was mentioned with the taillights and headlights. Completely pointless in Oregon. There was never an incident of anything that related to that as being a problem, and yet we tied their hands and gave them less motivation to do their job. The number one thing that was found from that, DUIs, people driving drunk on the roads. That was the number one citation from that. Do we want those people on the roads now? I don't. I think that's a bad thing. We have to look at the ramifications of everything that we do, and we have to, put an end to this chaos. It's ridiculous.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Mark.
Next. This is pretty complicated. Number 11.
Okay. Okay, this is one we've heard before also. Do you feel confident in Oregon's election laws? Please explain.
Score. Well, since I was out of a lifeline, as this is Providence giving me this question. So first and foremost, not only do we have a problem, the fact that we have almost half the country that is concerned about the sanctity of our elections, in government, that's a huge problem. Because democracy in terms of our republic requires that people have confidence in their vote. You know, you only express yourself in a variety of ways: your speech, your purchases, and your vote. That's how we interact in society, especially with our government, because we get to pick our leaders. And in order to make sure that everyone has access to the vote, we have to have confidence. So confidence requires a couple of things. One is that we require a system or a chain of custody that assures that our elections are honest and consistent and fair, and that everybody's vote counts. So one citizen, one vote. So that's why it's important to do forensic imaging before every election, especially in Oregon, because of our easily manipulatable mail-in voting system. When you have forensic imaging, you can't fake that. This is how they uncovered the fraud in Wisconsin. One county clerk did forensic imaging, and they were able to compare it to post-2020 election, and it blew the doors off things because the algorithms were changed, apparently through a thermostat on the wall, Wi-Fi. This is a huge, huge problem. So when I'm governor, I want to propose something a little more creative. One, we go to voter ID. We do it for everything. Even when we file our taxes, we have to say this is who we are. So it's really silly to make arguments that it suppresses the vote. We can have a very liberal but positive absentee system for those who still need to do mail-in voting. And we do a holiday so that everything shuts down and the whole state gets together and does local precinct voting in person, so our young people can see people exercising their democratic right to vote. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, Paul, you are our last question of the day, and then we'll move to closing remarks.
Try to get the election one again.
Oh. I gotta
Lucky
use
number
my
13.
Well, you can use that to talk about whatever you want.
13.
Oh, 13, pardon me.
Understanding the governor's work across party, understanding the governor must work across party lines to make changes. How will you be effective at this?
Well, one of the biggest things is this. We have this little thing called the Constitution. It's one of the reasons why I'm part of the Constitution Party now. Any candidate running for office should be standing on the Constitution, period. And as governor, you're not there to represent the Republicans or Democrats or even the Constitution Party. You're there to represent the entire state. And for me, I put together this contract with Oregon, which is basically a commitment on my part to every Oregonian what I'm going to do when I get there, everything that I'm going to work towards. I'm actually calling the shot. And traditionally, we've always had politicians, but the fact is we don't need politicians. We need project managers, people who actually will step in and get the job done. We have seen too much of the worst politicians in the state of Oregon. And, for me, it's been a frustrating thing watching it all happen. And it's also what kind of pushed me to get into politics. So fundamentally for everybody out there, realize that if you're going to be a governor, you represent everybody. That's their safety, their security, all the above. And when you're dealing with problems, you got to deal with them. We have too many people that we deal with Antifa, BLM, not enforcing laws, not allowing law enforcement to do their job, DAs not doing their job. We have so much dereliction of duty, it's not even funny in this state. And that has got to come to a screeching halt. From the election fraud, and I'll tell you straight up, it's going on big time here in Oregon. And it's actually probably was the test ground from the beginning for all election fraud countrywide. And for me, Oregon, we use ES&S hardware and software. That comes actually straight from Dominion. All the other 18 counties use hard and clear ballot. All those have Smartmatic at their core. That's owned by Dominion. Oregon voting has been under Dominion the entire time. And they've been cheating in Democrat primaries, Republican primaries. So we've lost good candidates everywhere. But ultimately, we got to stand our ground and just stand it together. We got to bring some unity to this state.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, I know we have some leftover. Yeah, are you the only one, Bridget?
Yeah, I think she's it.
Okay.
I thought we
you
had a
can
bunch
talk
more
about-
questions.
Well, because we had a late start, we wanted to.
Right, that's fine. So, I am running for governor to put a hard stop to this 40-year decline, and it's gotten worse in the last 10 years. I'm not running to necessarily get in there and bicker and get into this partisan bickering that we've been engaged in over the years. I want to stay laser focused on solving some of these huge problems that our career politicians have failed to even address, like education scores in the tank, and homelessness, and crime soaring, and inflation that's crushing everyone, and wildfires. We didn't get a chance to talk about that tonight, but how we're using our natural resources. So negotiate? No, I'm running to put a hard stop. If you've seen these recent polls, you'll know the entire public out there, the voting public, is asking for change, fundamental change of direction. And that is what I will do as governor. I have no interest in getting in there and negotiating back and forth. And to this point, I want to add, two people not here tonight, Bud Light Pierce and Christine Drazen Romney. They have not shown leadership. They have not stood up and pushed back against this leftist agenda, and it would be a terrible mistake to put them in. We can only expect what we've gotten in the past.
Excellent. Thank you
Are
very
we
much.
allowed to clap?
Yes, let's, yes. Thank you.
Sitting ovation.
The great
Yeah.
closer. All right. So for closing remarks, anything, like Amber, you mentioned trafficking earlier, anything you want to address, you get 1 minute. Anything you want to address that you didn't get to?
Is this our closing remark for the night, or just
For the
something
night.
for the night?
Yes.
we're
Closing
starting
remarks for the
with
night. Well, we
Amber.
can go ahead and start with Leon.
Okay.
You're up.
Oh, thank you. So, if we remember the story of Robin Hood robbed from the rich and gave to the poor. What he was actually doing was robbing from the government and giving the money back to the poor. You cannot be Robin Hood if you're going to spend money, any money. You have to plan on being the guy who spends no money. The budget is accessible to all of us. It's on the internet. We can go and access it anytime we want to. If you don't believe me, I've read it. Go look it up. It's on the oldest website. The second point that I need to make, your safety and security is your responsibility first, law enforcement's second. If you're not willing to defend yourself at all times, law enforcement's going to take 7 to 14 minutes to get there in the best of circumstances. And in the case of the hostage situation in Portland, they did not show up, and the hostage takers had an hour and a half. You can find my platform, setoregonfree.com.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, Amber.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you guys so much for letting us do this. We've been very much censored a lot. I'm not the only one that feels that way. One of the things I really wanted to touch on today was about human and sex trafficking. I am in the southern part of the state, and I know people have felt this in most of the state as well, but in southern Oregon, we are very infiltrated. I work a lot with One's Purpose, but this is something that is dear to my heart to really kind of put a stop on this in our state. So please go to Vote Oregon First for Amber.com. Again, that's Vote Oregon First for, like the number 4, Amber.com. And I've got a lot of things I'm working on. I'm a very action-oriented candidate. I've got my Freedom Band. I've got the Triple Bravo Band for our veterans. And then we've got the new band that's coming out, and it's People Aren't Products, and it is going to be the Boycott Slavery Band, and that's going to be there to bring resources to stop human and sex trafficking. So please pay attention to me, and don't keep your eye off me, and stay tuned.
All right, love it. Thank you. All right, Bill.
Bill Sizemore. With 1 minute, it's going to have to be pretty broad strokes. I am enthusiastically and unapologetically pro-life, and I am pro-Second Amendment, believe in people having the right to arm themselves and legally. And I believe Oregon's desperate for someone who will support law and order and let the police know they have their backs, and someone who will, with concern, address the homelessness crisis with compassion, but at the same time, make it clear whatever choices we give you, you have the right to make it, whether it's treatment for mental illness or drugs. You do not have the choice to stay here illegally camping, because we'll give you a place. And I think Oregon's desperate for somebody right now who's tried, tested, and proven, will not back down to the public employee unions or the radical Democrats, and is not afraid of editorials that will condemn them. I've had all those, and it didn't budge me a bit.
All right. Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, Brandon.
So Brandon Merritt, running for governor. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I genuinely appreciate it. What I want to say is that I understand the two-party system sucks. And I know most of you feel that way, which is why the non-affiliated voter is officially the largest registered body of voters. 2.8 million voters, you're the largest. So what I'm asking from all of you is to know that you have until tomorrow to go to the Secretary of State's website to change your registration from non-affiliated to Republican to vote for me, to push me forward in the May 17th election. 37 years, folks. We've been on the wrong side of it. It's time for change. I'm not talking about 1 to 2 paths. I'm talking about a third path that is putting Oregon on a prosperous path forward and officially making Oregonians whole again. Thank you very much. Check out my website, merritt22.com, or makeoregonwholeagain.com. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellent. Bridget.
Well, I'm Bridget Barton, and I am a relentlessly optimistic outsider in this race. I have 30 years of experience as a conservative advocate, and you know, you have a lot of candidates to choose from. You have to decide two things. Who do you trust to actually do these hard things, get results, and turn things upside down? But second, and this is equally important, who can win the general election? Well, my history shows I am not afraid to do hard things. And as far as winning the general election, I'm endorsed again by Oregon Right to Life. I'm supported by the Oregon Firearms Federation. I have endorsements from members of Timber Unity, from multiple businesses across the state, and I'm endorsed by Lars Larson. You know, people are looking for an outsider, someone who will fight for them fearlessly and relentlessly, and I will do that for you. I'll stay focused on the issues. And I have a message for the career politicians. The people of Oregon want their power back, and I'm coming. Thank you.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. All right, Nick.
Thanks. I'm Nick Hess. And, you know, Oregon doesn't need any more politicians. Oregon needs a CEO. And that's what I bring to the table. CEO-style leadership to get things done. Getting things done isn't about dictating the other way like we've been done to forever by Democrats. It's about finding ways to work together to actually make changes that last beyond a 4-year term. You know, right now, a lot of people just want to make executive orders. And executive orders end up, we've seen this time and time again in our presidential elections, just go away after 4 years, and you end up with the same thing you had before, and it flip-flops. That's not lasting change. I want a better life for my 9-year-old son. I'm doing this to give him that because I care about my home. I've lived here all my life, and we are in shambles. And we need a leader that can pull us out of that. But we also need a leader that is electable. You know, to take off of Bridget's thing, you know, electability is important. And having somebody from the Portland metro area is the key to that. You know, we keep trying to run rural candidates and things like that, and the reason why they can't win is because they don't pull the independent voters over to their side, and they don't relate to the general big population in Portland. We have to pull those into our side, and we have to approach them with open arms and listen to what they're saying if we want to make real change. VoteHess.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. All right, Mark.
Okay, well, I'm Mark Thielman, and first of all, Bridget, it is Pfizer Kristin and Basement Bud.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right. So a couple of things. You know, we hear a lot of aspirations, and you know, I'm coming in from the outside, and I'm coming. Those are all great lines. The reality of it is we need a proven champion, someone who's taken on this government consistently over time and won. Winning is something we need to get used to in the Republican Party, and I'm a winner. I just won in Dorchester, right in the heart of our establishment Republican Party politics, and I beat some of the folks right here at this table in a vote range of 2-1 with 61% of the vote. So it really comes down to message. I did not bring 138 people to Dorchester. I brought 24. The rest of the people were persuaded by message, and that's what I bring. I bring a winning message, And I bring a whole slew of amazing endorsements like the Oregon Firearms Federation because of my plan to strengthen 2A and the fact that I put parents back in charge and got rid of them. So again, it's Mark with a C. C stands for conservative, markfororegon.com.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. All right, Paul.
Paul Romero, Constitution Party. I wasn't invited to Dorchester, so I couldn't be part of your thing. Did you know that here in the state of Oregon, there's a law that requires 4 years of civics to be taught to our kids in high school? It's a law. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of parental rights, and Oregon has chosen to ignore them. Voter fraud, election integrity. Right now, we have a case with the federal attorney general regarding federal election law violations by every county clerk in Oregon. And once we get this back, whether we get it back in time or not, we'll push for an injunction to actually prevent them from destroying the 2020 election data and ballots. The simple fact is we need to go back to old school. It's still the best school. As a constitutional carry, Second Amendment pro-life candidate, my goal is to help make Oregon ours again, because it's being sold right out from underneath us. It's frustrating, I know, but know this, vote Paul Romero, and we'll make Oregon yours again. That's romerofororegon.com. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you all. Can we get a round of applause? Thousands of people in this room.
I think it's important to give our guests their due as well. Can we get around for them?
Thank you. Thank you. Excellent. Well, I just wanted to say, I didn't plan on saying this, but I'm going to. It's funny, Krista and I were talking. We were both up till 3 a.m. Couldn't sleep, and it was very likely. I didn't think I was nervous or overly excited, but obviously it's because this is a big deal, and it made me think about what you're going through, like during this campaign. It's just crazy. I'm sure you've lost so much sleep, and your mind is just constantly on overdrive. So I just want to thank you all for really being so selfless and doing this for the people. So that's huge.
Thank you.
So thank you for that.
You all are amazing.
I'm gonna go ahead and second that.
All right,
All
second.
right, I'm gonna second that.
Cheers.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty.